right. People are streaming in. Yay. Great. Wonderful. Welcome in, everyone. We'll give it a couple of seconds for folks to come in.
Someone who's in this presentation is also attending the presentation.
That's always fun.
Yeah. No, someone who has a collection I was going to highlight.
Surprise! Well, that is an excellent cup. I like that coffee mug.
Thanks.
Whatever you've got there.
It's from my suicide hotline volunteering days. When the logo has completely faded, probably like a bad spell will happen. But for now, we're fine.
So welcome everyone to tonight's event with the GLBT Historical Society. If you've been joining us for our online programming before this, you probably know my face. I'm Lee, I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the museum operations manager for the museum. And tonight we're going to be talking about ways to research from home as we are all stuck in quarantine. And I am joined tonight by our archives staff, and they will tell you all of the fun details and have a really wonderful presentation for you. But I'm just going to give us a little bit of housekeeping to start. So we're going to have Isaac and Kelsey will be talking for what, about like 45 minutes? Is that what you said?
40-ish.
And then we'll have like 10-15 minutes near the end for Q&A. And so if you are not familiar with utilizing Zoom for a webinar, you have at the bottom of your screen like 3 different options. There's chat, Q&A, and raise your hand. If you'd like to talk with one another or send messages to me or the other panelists, you can click on the chat button and you'll be able to see the chat bar, and you can make sure that you, underneath the 2 where it says type message here, you just want to make sure you select either all panelists if you want to send a message just to us, or if you'd like to write something in the comments bar, in the chat bar, for everyone participating to see, and for all of the attendees, just make sure that you hit all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, it'll only go to us. And then when we, hello from Palm Springs, hi. And then when we get to our question and answer section, we'll be using the Q&A function. So if you click the little Q&A button, it's like 2 different speech bubbles. It's like 2 speech bubbles in conversation. You can type out a question and send it, and you'll be able to see all the questions that you've asked, and we'll have a queue of them, and we'll go through and answer them. We please request that you do this as opposed to send questions in the chat, because then they can easily be lost. And if you have a question while we're in the middle of the presentation and you feel like you won't remember it at the end when we get to our formal Q&A section, please feel free to just send it in. It won't disrupt anything. We'll just kind of keep it on in the background and keep it in mind to address once we get to our Q&A. And with that, I would love to introduce Kelsey Evans and Isaac Fellman. I'm going to disappear.
So Isaac's going to share his screen. He's going to be running the presentation on his end today. And I am Kelsey Evans. I'm the Director of Archives and Special Collections at GLBT Historical Society. And Isaac Fellman is our reference archivist. I use she, her pronouns, Isaac, he, him. I'm just going to exit. All right, so thank you for joining us tonight. This is Living Room, Reading Room, Exploring Archives from Home. We wanted to host this event because with the pandemic and the shelter-in-place closures, we understand how challenging and frustrating it is for independent researchers, students, academics, journalists, etc., to continue to do their work without access to the physical archives. Until further notice, both the GLBT Historical Society Archives and Museum are closed to the public, with staff working from home. During this time, we're really focused on bringing programming online and making resources, including exhibits and archival material, available digitally. And while I can't unfortunately say that everything from the archives is available remotely, we are excited today to share some really amazing online resources that will hopefully make continued research and learning possible from your home. So we have 4 main goals for today's talk. First, Isaac is going to introduce you to the rich historical resources that GLBT Historical Society has made available online from our collections. Second, I'll share some of our favorite local and national online resources, including sites that aggregate material from both GLBT Historical Society and from archives throughout the country. Third, we'll go over ways to prepare for your next on-site visit once we are able to open up again. This will include a quick introduction to the online catalog and search resources and how to make appointments. And then finally, we'll talk about ways to stay updated as we make new resources available and ways that you can connect with and support the Historical Society, including benefits of membership and our social media channels. So like we went over, we're going to do Q&A at the end, so just make sure you're sort of writing those questions down. We will address as much as we can. And just a final quick note before we get started, we're going to share a lot of links and websites really quickly in this talk. Know that this is being recorded, so you can always return to it later on the YouTube channel. We also have a slide at the end that has all of the links written out for easy reference. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us via email at reference@glbthistory.org. With that,
if I could just interject, we can also send out a follow-up email with the resources and the whatever you want to share from the presentation.
Wonderful. So we'll do that. We'll send out that list of resources that you'll see at the end. Thank you, Lee. All right. So with that, Isaac, you want to take it away?
Certainly. And this is a fascinating new experience for me. I am good at public speaking, but I am totally unaccustomed to private speaking. So bear with me if I have a little bit of nerves. So our online collections at GLBT Historical Society are, as Kelsey was saying, they're very rich. There's a lot of great information there. There can also be a lot of information overwhelm if you go to our site and just go and look at the gigantic list of online collections. The thing to remember is that even though there is thing after thing after thing, they group pretty cleanly into categories, and the categories are pretty legible once you know what the whole deal is with them. A lot of the time that happened just because several collections were put online as part of the same grant that had the same theme. So the major things that I'm going to talk about today, photography, material related to HIV and AIDS, audiovisual recordings, the Bay Area Reporter, which is its own huge thing, transgender related material, which is hosted on the Digital Transgender Archive, and oral histories. And then one last special category, which is an ordinarily paywalled database by Gale Cengage that is currently available to the public, which is cool. So first things, in order to visit our online collections, you've just got to go to our site, go to the archives menu at upper left, just select online collections. That'll take you to the big list, and just jumping in with photography collections. So our photo collections are they're quite broad in range. There are a few that I would probably mention before the others in terms of just sheer depth and breadth. These are the ones where a lot of they're the highways of our photo collections as opposed to the side streets. The Crawford Wayne Barton papers, the Robert Pruzan and Henry Lelou, all three of these people were serious photographers, I think in at least two cases, professional ones. And they photographed the San Francisco's queer scene from the 60s through the 90s. Crawford Barton is especially significant because he had an incredibly good eye and ear for spotting when interesting things were going to happen. There are photos as a result of his work in this database of the 1970 Gay-In, which is usually considered the first Pride event. I would also like to single out, of course, the Elaine Gay Jarvis papers and Marie Ueda, which are a little bit narrower in focus. And in Jarvis's case, entirely focused on one Pride event. And in Ueda's case, I believe mainly Pride, other things as well. All of these are worth your time. Either if you are a journalist looking for work to support, materials to support your work, if you are an academic, if you are a casual browser, they are delightful. Here we are. So when you click through to most of these, you will find that they are hosted on Diva, which is a thing that brings me to an important sidebar in my presentation. We don't have an internal system for putting materials online, so we rely on various external hosting sites to do that. All of these are, there's a lot of variety in them. Most of them are straightforward to use. Kelsey will be talking at greater length about them after my part of the presentation, actually, because one of the great things about using these third-party sites is that other archives use them too. And so there is a very easy jumping off point to a very broad variety of material that you can explore in a direct line from our site to this whole archival world. So I just wanted to show you, here's what Diva looks like. It's just got this nice, clean, panel view of all the photos and also a couple of videos as well, which I will get to. A nice thing about Diva as well is that it is pretty broadly searchable. You see the search bar at the upper right, and if you type in any keyword, in this case, Kelsey has set it up just showing you the keyword love, it will show you everything across collections that we have hosted here. So if you are not sure whether the Barton papers or Jarvis's have the material from the parade or the event that you're thinking of, you can just search the whole thing in a huge bucket like this. So it's easy to use. The next set of major collections is collections related to HIV and AIDS. We put these online as part of a big collaboration across a couple of other archives in the Bay Area. UCSF is one, Kelsey, the other is?
SFPL.
SFPL, thank you. I knew I would forget the third. I will just briefly go over some of these because there's a lot of diversity in form and subject matter. AIDS Legal Referral Panel, an organization that provided legal aid to people with AIDS. A lot of this took the form of making wills and organizing next of kin, but it was a broad range of services. You might know Randy Schiltz, who is this next collection from his book, And the Band Played On, which is, I think, the first major historical book about AIDS. He also wrote extensively about queer people in the US military. Bruce Decker was a political consultant and a public policy advocate. He was also a person with AIDS himself. He did a lot of advocacy work on the electoral politics side. Sue Rockman, another journalist who did a lot of work about people with AIDS in prison. MJ Talbot recordings. This collection relates to people who are Asian American or Pacific Islander and their experience as people with AIDS and advocating for people with AIDS. And lastly, the Beowulf Thorne papers. Thorne was one of the editors of a zine called Disease Pariah News. It is a very mordant and very fascinating humor zine about the experience of living with AIDS in the 90s. Just the other day, by the way, there was a great article in Hazlitt magazine about Thorne and his work that was researched at GLBTHS before we were all quarantined. It's wonderful, and it's very much worth looking up. A thing that I wanted to point out about these collections, they're hosted on Calisphere, which is a site affiliated with the University of California. And it looks like a straightforward photo gallery in the same way that our stuff up on Diva is, but actually a lot of these are complete, in this case, issues of Disease Pariah News or complete sets of papers on PDF. If you click into any of these, you will come to this window where you could just download the whole thing after this brief, token promise not to abuse copyright by doing so. So it is such a deep pool of information, Calisphere and all these sites. And again, Kelsey's going to talk more about Calisphere generally later on. Checking my time. Cool. The next major set of collections that I was going to talk about is we're new to doing these in bulk. It is audiovisual things. It is video and audio. We've always done a little. We've started to do a lot. And again, just to sort of go over these, they fall into little subcategories. The Pride Parade videos are one that we just did very shortly before quarantine. And I'm so excited that we were able to put these online. They're from the 70s and 80s. there is drag, there are butterfly people, there is a guy dressed as C-3PO. It is, it's a window into the past, and especially this year when we will not be able to celebrate Pride in the way that we've become accustomed to for the last 50 years. I think it's a real treasure to have these videos online to explore. Other video collections, there's a limited amount. BML, which is Queer Events Around the Bay. Harold T. O'Neill, or Hal O'Neill. I think that all that we have up there is his Pride videos for now, but next time we are actually open to the public. And if you're interested in the history of home video, O'Neill is a cave of wonders. He started filming in 1939 at the 1939 World's Fair. Until the 80s, he filmed his whole life with his partner, their vacations, their day trips to Vallejo with their gay friends, you know, like rolling down hills, having picnics, having a great time. It's a time machine. So also there are several radio series that we have, which are also treasures, I think. Fruit Punch and The Gay Life are general interest queer shows that focused on politics and culture. Also, that the Hannah Wilson audio recordings, those are lesbian and woman specific. 3 shows: Lesbian Air, Radio Free Lesbian, A Whirlwind, interviews and live music and readings. I was going to show that off on the next page. Oh, yes, I forgot. Voila, the parade videos, they're hosted on Diva. This one is hosted on the Internet Archive, where we also put some of our stuff. If you're familiar with the Internet Archive, you might not think of it as a place where professional archivists are putting material, but that it's in very common use throughout the profession. And we really appreciate everything that they offer to us in terms of hosting space. Yes, here is the Hannah Wilson collection. Next category, the Bay Area Reporter Archive. The Bay Area Reporter, again, if you're not familiar, this is a local queer newspaper. It is distributed in bars, hence the abbreviation of its name. It's been in continuous publication since the 70s. And in the last couple of years, we've had this huge, large-scale project to digitize all of it and make all of it keyword searchable. It's an incredible source of information, especially if you want to do a little bit more of a deep dive. If you feel like, okay, I've got a topic that is not, it's not going to be something that a photojournalist covers. It's not going to be something that is covered on a radio show. I need to find out about one particular performance that happened in 1982. I need to see an obituary. BAR is your person. The front page looks like this of the BAR database. As you can see, you can browse by date. That's on the lower left here, or just search by keyword. Here on this slide, I've searched for Jose Sarria, the iconic San Francisco drag personality and political figure who was the first openly queer person to run for office in the US. As you can see, there is a replica of the page itself on the right. On the left, there is a crude but pretty effective OCR, or just like a scan to text version, so that's in plain text as well. And that's where the searchability comes in. It's magic. The Bay Area Reporter Obituary Database is also an invaluable resource. I can't tell you the number of times I have been looking for somebody, because we have a collection about them or a collection that pertains to them. There isn't enough biographical information in the collection to explain who they were to researchers, and you type them in here. Very often, you are going to find not only a description of what the person did, but a description of their activist activities, loving tributes by their friends, a sense of what their whole social world was like, who knew them. This is something that I highly recommend for research on ordinary people in the Bay Area, especially 70s, 80s, 90s. Just a couple more, I think, of these major collecting areas that I'm going to talk about. So, transgender-related material, very close to my transgender heart. These are hosted on the Digital Transgender Archive. There's a handful of them right now. One is papers relating to Lou Sullivan, who is one of our flagship collections. Lou was a trans and gay historian, diarist, had a variety of day jobs, but that was the heart of what he was. And he did some very important advocacy for trans people who also identified as queer, who were, the medical establishment is always just a little bit behind in understanding what trans experience actually looked like. And at the time, the experience of transgender men who were trying to get medical treatment was even, doctors were starting to talk to each other and like acknowledge that there were trans lesbians, but as for gay trans men, Lou did a lot to change all that. So here in his collection, we have, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention his diaries, 30 years of diaries, like beautiful, just literary writing about this man's complex and fascinating life. We have them all. Some of them have been collected as a book, We Both Laughed in Pleasure, which came out last year, which I highly recommend. Anyway, yes, a lot of his correspondence, ephemera that he collected, and informational things and event brochures. 3 out of 4 of the collections on this page is all Lou. Also on Digital Transgender Archive is Vanguard magazine. This was a zine that was put out by young people living and working in the Tenderloin in the 60s. And as you can see from the cover that Kelsey has put here on the right, it's a handmade thing. It's beautiful, it's psychedelic. It was all printed on scrap paper in the Metropolitan, not MCC, at Glide Memorial Church in the Tenderloin. So that's just, it's an exquisite object and way ahead of its time. Here is just what their interface looks like. As you can see, I've just got to search for the Lou Sullivan collection at Joe Beatty Historical Society. Kelsey's going to go into more detail about this later. It's so good. And yeah, as you can see, there is correspondence here between Lou and other iconic trans figures of the time, like Virginia Prince. Okay, subscription-based collections. I was going to talk about this, yes. So a lot of our best digitized collections are behind they're part of a paywalled academic database that is available at some libraries and is always available in our reading room, but is not usually available to look at from home unless you're affiliated with a university. Right now, during the COVID-19 crisis, we've been given permission to share that freely to everybody. The only caveat is that we can't just put the link up in public, but email me and I'll give you the link. Several of our major collections are on this. There's a list you can see here. Ellen Berube papers. Berube wrote Coming Out Under Fire, which is a very important text about queer people serving in the Second World War. Donald Lucas papers, those pertain to early, what was called homophile activism in San Francisco. Let's see, Martin Meeker oral history things. Phyllis Lyon and Del Martin, who were, like for surely it must have been 50 years. They had this very long partnership. They're the founders of the Daughters of Bilitis. Every lesbian event in San Francisco in the second half of the 20th century seems to relate somehow to Phyllis and Del. It's digitized in here. It's all searchable, plus information and tons and tons of primary sources from queer archives all over the country. So again, hit me up for that link if you would. Here's what its front page looks like. Easy discovery search, go to town. I wanted to talk briefly about our oral history collections, which are huge. A lot of this stuff is not digitized and a big chunk of it is still not even transcribed, but some of what is transcribed and digitized is online and freely available for you. The transcripts first, you access these by going to our main catalog page, which we'll talk about more later. It's just archives at upper left, search collections. And yeah, it's the lower of the 2 search bars here. I've just typed in World War II is one of the major areas that we have oral history material on. So not surprising, 143 matches. And as you can see, not all of them, but many of them will have a transcript that you can just click on in PDF. these are another thing, sort of like the bar obituaries, that has just saved me more than one time with regard to trying to find out about somebody or something that is a little bit outside the historical mainstream, as really too many queer things are. I was also going to point out that some of our oral histories are here on Calisphere, and they are linked from that page as well. I should say, by oral histories, I mean the full sound recordings of them. Oh, yes, it is time now to hand you back to Kelsey, who is going to talk about local and national resources and aggregator sites.
Thank you, Isaac. So as Isaac sort of mentioned throughout his talk, many of the Historical Society's resources actually live on what we call aggregator sites or digital hubs. And these are sites that serve as online platforms, bringing together content sourced from many different archives. These sites are really valuable for researchers because they can act as a kind of one-stop shop for keyword searching lots of content from different repositories. So as a researcher, you may not know which archives have Pride Parade material, for instance, but if you know about these aggregator sites, you can start your search there and find resources that are useful to you and that can guide you to the archives that might be most helpful. So I'm going to show you 4 aggregator sites that we like and contribute to. This list is not exhaustive for aggregator sites, but it should give you a good start to understanding them and to doing research from your home. So we're going to look at Calisphere, Digital Public Library of America, Digital Transgender Archive, and the Internet Archive. Slide. So Calisphere is a project of the University of California Libraries and maintained by California Digital Library. Calisphere showcases content and exhibits from archives and libraries throughout the state of California, including all of the UCs and partners like GLBT Historical Society. It features a big search bar on the landing page that's shown there. This allows you to keyword search almost 2 million items that are on the site, including images, texts, and audiovisual recordings. Once you get your results for a keyword search, you can further limit it by subject, date, collection, institution, etc. And you sort of saw what those pages look like when Isaac was showing things that live on Calisphere. There is a ton of great material on Calisphere, including local content from other institutions in Northern California, like UC San Francisco and San Francisco Public Library. SFPL in particular has a really large historical collection of photographs documenting San Francisco and its change over time. Slide. So Digital Public Library of America, or DPLA, is basically a Calisphere-style site for the entire United States. So DPLA harvests content from Calisphere, for instance, so California content is well represented, and it does that for other states too that have similar aggregator sites. DPLA is a nonprofit organization that partners with universities, libraries, and archives throughout the US, and it features over 37 million items. The landing page, again, features this big search bar and similar search facets to Calisphere. But DPLA is unique in that it has these really nice expanded research and educational tools. They have robust exhibits and primary source sets on specific topics, and these user guides for folks like genealogy researchers, scholarly research, educators, and lifelong learners. And all of those are easily findable on the main landing page. You just sort of scroll below what I've shown here in the screenshot. Slide. So Digital Transgender Archive, or DTA, is an example of an aggregator site dedicated to a specific subject area. DTA started as a collaborative project by academics, and it's grown into a digital hub for trans content sourced from over 60 international universities, organizations, and private collections, including our own collections that Isaac showed. So again, on the landing page, you see a big search bar. You're going to start to see a theme here. It allows you to keyword search the content. DTA also features some topic and collection search functions that make browsing easy if you're not quite sure what you want to keyword search and you just sort of want to browse around in the content. DTA also has user guides that can serve as good introductions to different resources, tools, and subjects. Slide. Last of our hubs is the Internet Archive, or IA. IA is a nonprofit organization that's actually headquartered here in San Francisco. And once things open back up, I'd really encourage you go visit them. They host these public tours that are really, really fun and informative. IA is a really big site with lots of content sourced from universities and archival repositories, as well as individuals and private collectors. IA has millions of books, audiovisual recordings, archival materials, and more. Their mission is really broad. It is to, quote, provide universal access to all knowledge. So you definitely can expect and you get a wide spectrum of content on IA. One of the most unique services that IA provides is the Wayback Machine, and you see it featured there at the top. The Wayback Machine is the actual Internet archive. IA has been crawling and preserving internet sites for decades and currently includes records of over 430 billion web pages. You can keyword search on the Wayback Machine or search specific website URLs, and that specific URL site or search can be particularly useful. For instance, if you search glbthistory.org, our own website. Oh, you hit slide, sorry, Isaac.
Sorry.
No worries. You'll get this calendar view of all the snapshots IA has taken of the website. If you click on a date, you'll get an interactive view of our website from, for instance, February 19th, 2003. And there it is in all of its glory. These snapshots allow you to navigate around the site as you would have in 2003, so they're actually interactive. The Wayback Machine is an incredible research tool that captures the very ephemeral content of the internet. It's used a lot by journalists. I actually saw it just recently, a couple days ago, in an article on NPR that was talking about Vice President Pence's visit to the Mayo Clinic and something that had been deleted off of a website, but using the Wayback Machine, the journalist was able to evidence it. Slide. So in addition to these aggregator sites, I also want to share just a few sites that feature material often requested by our researchers. These are a bit more content or media specific than the other sites we just went over, but they're useful and hopefully you find them useful. We're going to look at the Bay Area Television Archive, New York Public Library's LGBT collections, and 2 newspaper sites, the California Digital Newspaper Collection and Chronicling America. Slide. So the Bay Area Television Archive is a project of the archives at San Francisco State University. The site boasts thousands of hours of news films, documentaries, and other TV footage produced in the Bay Area and Northern California. You can keyword search footage or browse these really helpful collections that they've curated that include topics like the Black Panther Party, the occupation of Alcatraz, Glad Memorial Church, and collections of specific broadcast news channels like KQED. Slide. New York Public Library has curated selections from their digital collections related to LGBT material. We like to highlight this site in part because it showcases material from New York and the East Coast. At GLBT Historical Society, our collections are primarily focused on Northern California. So these resources are often useful to folks wanting that sort of bi-coastal story. You can look through collections related to ACT UP New York, gay rights demonstrations in the city, the Mattachine Society, etc. Slide. Lastly, we're going to look at 2 sites that feature historical newspaper resources. The first is the California Digital Newspaper Collection, or CDNC. This site is maintained by folks at UC Riverside and includes over 500,000 issues of historical California newspapers dated 1846 to the present. It probably looks familiar because CDNC hosts the BAR archive from GLBTHS. On CDNC, you can browse by newspaper title, county, date, and subject tag, along with the robust keyword capability. You get article transcriptions along with the scanned images. Isaac sort of showed that. It's really useful, especially if your research is centered in California. Slide. Our second newspaper resource is Chronicling America, which is a project of the Library of Congress. On the site, you can search and view US historic newspaper pages from 1789 through 1963. And they also have a US newspaper directory to find more bibliographic information about American newspapers published between 1690 to the present. In addition to keyword capability, the site features some interesting search functions like being able to limit by state, ethnicity, or language. And a tip, if you're looking for those sort of ethnicity or language search functions, make sure you click the all digitized newspapers that's visible here, sort of to the right of those search pages, advanced search, all digitized newspapers. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Isaac.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to talk quite briefly about searching our catalog itself so that you can start thinking forward to a future when we're visiting archives again. You can plan your visit or just figure out some avenues of inquiry to talk to me about. So again, upper left menu, archives, search collections, same way that we got to the oral histories. When you search in this top bar here, that is the one to do the catalog. It will take you to where the catalog is hosted. And as you can see, I've just typed in the keyword lesbian, and I got a variety of collections which can be focused and, sorry, you can focus your search, you can facet it. Over on the right by date, by subject, and even by place, although in practice, most of our materials relate to San Francisco. One thing that's important to note, the catalog is, it doesn't always tell you just how much information there is for something. There is quite often a finding aid or, excuse me, a container list that you need to search for a little bit. So in this case, I've got the Larry Bob Roberts collection, which is this collection of queercore zines from the 90s that I had the joy of processing recently. So I know that there is a finding aid for it that I wrote. You've just got to go to that pane on the right, on the lower right. If you see those tiny words, additional collection guides, if you click on that, it will fast forward this pane over here to the end, and then you will see a link to a PDF of a fuller description of the collection with more details on what is inside. To make an appointment, which of course you currently can't do, but it's just the same menu, upper left, and it will take you to a Calendly page. We are available for research from Wednesday to Friday. Wednesdays and Fridays are members only days. It is worth doing to become a member, and it is pretty cheap, especially if you happen to be a student. And if that is not something that is on the table for you, we are always available to the public on Thursdays for free. I think that that is it, except for how to, oh, Kelsey is going to talk about this last bit, but please use the email link. Please email me. I am always delighted when researchers email me. It is my, I won't say whole job, it's 20% of my job. I want to hear from you.
Thanks, Isaac. So yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to stay connected with us as we navigate this evolving pandemic. Like Isaac said, if you have any questions about doing research or finding resources, or even just sort of starting out on a research project and you want some help getting started, you can always reach out to us at reference@glbthistory.org. This email is also the best email to contact if you have questions about using an item that you found online in your own publication. We also have information about permissions and reproduction requests on our website under duplications and permissions under that main archive menu bar that Isaac has shown. We will be sharing information about new digital collections that we're building, and we are working to build new digital collections every day, especially during the shelter-in-place time. And our online events, everything will be shared on our social media. So you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'd also encourage you to sign up for our monthly email newsletter. The newsletter is really the best way to stay up to date on upcoming programming, and it features articles and interviews that are really interesting and often highlight our wonderful archives and staff. Finally, you can always become a member, like Isaac mentioned. Memberships support our continued work, and we really couldn't do what we do without community support. Benefits are outlined on the website and include things like early access to some of our online content, free admission to the museum, expanded research hours in the archives, and discounts on merchandise. Slide. So here's this list of resources that we mentioned at the top. It includes all of our contact information along with the links of different stuff that we showed today. It's important to know that everything Isaac really went over is on that GLBT Historical Society digital collections page. So if you get there, you'll find all of those. The individual hubs and aggregator sites are listed out separately. And we will be emailing this out since we can do that. All right, so thank you. That is the end of our talk. And now we are open to questions. So anything that came up for you, I know we have a couple here that we could sort of start with, but please do type in the chat or type in more in the Q&A. So we answered the first one. The second one, does the GLBT Historical Society have an archive of Drummer magazine? Also, are the Harvey Milk recordings part of the GLBT Historical Society archives?
We definitely have Drummer.
Yes.
I pull it all the time. It's just rows and rows. I think it's complete, but don't quote me.
Yeah, we have a pretty robust Drummer, and including some of the specialized publications that Drummer did, and special issues and things like that.
And recordings of Milk. I know that there are some in the Gay Life archive. I'm sure that they interviewed him.
There are some interviews. So the Harvey Milk, just so you know, the Harvey Milk records, we have some material related to Harvey Milk, a lot of personalia and sort of artifacts related to his life. Most of his papers, his main paper collection is at the San Francisco Public Library in their history center there, as he was a public official, and they serve as the city archives. I should say Drummer, I'm not sure if it was one of the periodicals that was digitized and is available on Gale or not. I'd have to search that. But most of the things we're mentioning, other than the audio recordings on the Gay Life, which would be online, these would be things that you might want to reach out directly to Isaac about to see if we have anything scanned on the back end that we could share.
Yeah. Other questions?
It says, Ron Williams says, as a witness to history, I'm still active to researchers and producing GLBTQ photography and documenting history. Thank you. Yeah. So one thing to note, a big part of my job is working with donors and folks who are interested in documenting their work and their lives in the archives. So I don't know if you're interested in that, Ron Williams, necessarily, but just to throw that in, certainly if you're a person who's active, has historical material, something in this talk sort of reminded you of, oh my gosh, I have this amazing source of diaries, or I have this amazing photography collection that I took over the years. You can always reach out to us to learn more about donating if you're interested to the archives and helping to build the collections even further.
I'm going to I'm going to do the last one first because it's more straightforward. Hannah, Drummer is it's a leather magazine, so unfortunately no drumming connection. But I know that we've got Sister Boom stuff. I think that we have a whole collection. So also, Hannah, your radio things that I featured. I also was meaning to plug your book. I'm sorry about that. Writing Fury Home. It's a memoir about coming out as a lesbian, and then your mom comes out as lesbian, and then you come to San Francisco in the 60s and live the bohemian life together. So I'm glad that I got to retroactively do that. Favorite thing.
Oh, Ron just says, we have talked and you'll receive my work. Thank you, Ron. That sounds perfect. And somebody else asked if they have stuff they want to contribute, should they reach out by email? Yeah, so that's yes. My email there, kelsey@glbthistory.org. That'll reach me directly. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me about donations.
Okay. So what's our favorite thing?
What's our favorite thing in the collections? You want to go first, Isaac?
It's such a panic moment because we have so much stuff, and it's always just a question of what is your favorite thing at this moment in the collections. This is kind of a wild one, but I've been thinking this last day because I saw a photo of a small exhibit that one of our interns or volunteers did just before I was formally hired here, of all the hair that we have. We have Harvey Milk's ponytail, Crawford Barton, the photographer, also his ponytail. We have a collection of pubic hair shavings that were taken in an S&M dungeon in San Francisco in the 80s. There has been also a piece by Monica Seafor that I always cite and highly recommend about just finding a single random strand of hair in the collection of one of our, I don't remember her name, Victoria. I don't have the last name. She was a trans woman and she donated makeup. And I don't know exactly why. Clearly it was very important to her to do that. Most of her collection is about other things, but it's a piece about finding a hair and that moment of connection and disconnection, finding it seemed to bridge a gap between her and history. And it was also so alienating because that's all that's left of the person that you can touch and contact. We don't even know if Victoria is alive. So yeah, right now my favorite thing is the hair.
I think one of my favorite things is in the Elsa Goodloe collection. She was a lesbian poet, and we have her volume called On a Gray Thread. It's one of the first openly lesbian volumes of poetry ever published, published in the 1920s. And it has her handwritten notes and sort of edits to the poems, including where she's sort of, things were gendered he, and she's crossing that out and saying she. So they're just some really powerful sort of notes, and it's a really beautiful and pretty rare little book we have.
Yeah.
Somebody, I think Terry wrote to us, did you talk about reference guides? So yeah, reference guides are useful to know about. I don't know if Isaac can share his screen. That might be a tall order for you, but to show where those are on live.
Yeah, no, I can do that. Let me just.
So I'll explain them while we maybe get that to work. On our
here.
website, under the search collections section, there is a listing of these research guides that folks have put together, including Isaac and some other people. But they're basically guides that are topic specific. So we have one, for instance, on pride. We have one on how to do archival research. So sort of this talk, but more about the guides and the catalog searching. We have things related to people with disabilities, et cetera. So any of these topic areas that you're interested, they will list out both online resources, but also give you a good sort of curated list of the most relevant collections. So if you're overwhelmed by the catalog search and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so many results, I don't know where to start. If these topic areas are useful to you, that's a really good place to start for research guides and to start your research there. Do we have any advice for aspiring archivists? I just got my library science degree and it's not a great time for job hunting. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I'm so sorry, Kai.
I mean, I love, so for what we can offer, we do have an internship program and volunteering. It's one of the great things about being a community archive, along with sort of our educational goals as professional archivists. So one of the things I would do is reach out to us if you have capacity and interest in getting more involved in hands-on learning at an institution. And if it's not us, most archival institutions will offer hands-on training. It's a way to get really good experience and to sort of take the theory that you're going to learn in school and get that practical skill set. And just hang in there with the job hunt. I'm sorry. It's just, that's a whole other talk we can give about being an archivist.
Yeah, I mean, one of my most important pieces of advice that was given to, well, two things that my first archival mentor taught me that were very important. One of them is to get involved in the conference scene as soon as you can, and getting involved in professional development stuff with the SAA and your local organization as soon as you can, getting things on your resume and contacting other archivists. You know, obviously there are no conferences happening right now, but there may be, paper applications, presentation things that are open for ones that are happening later. I will echo what Kelsey said about, get in touch with us to talk about this in more detail. The other piece of advice that he told me is to always get free food if there is any. I don't know if that's super relevant here, but I've always remembered.
Let's see, there's a couple more questions. What percentage of the collection is out in the museum at any given time? Yeah, tiny. I don't know the exact percentage, but we have over 900 collections. I think it's 3,500 linear feet of storage. So if you come into the archives eventually, someday when we can open up again, we have sort of a window into the vault, so you can get a sense of the scope of our storage when you're in the reading room. And that's sort of, I think, useful for people to get a sense of how many items we have, how big the collections are. And one of the things that we're really looking to do as an organization is expand that public side, that through the museum, both a virtual space, trying to get more of our material out there. And so it's sort of out of the vault and into those public spaces. That's something we're always working on doing. Definitely part of our strategic plan for the coming years. And also Ramon here. Ramon is our registrar. Hi, Ramon. He's one of our other staff members. He mentions the art and artifact collection. So we have a grant that we're finishing up with the city where we've inventoried all of our art and artifacts, which are sort of part of this very large artificial collection of art and artifacts. And we're working now to build an online database of that, which has some really lovely pictures and descriptions. So it'll be a lot easier for researchers to view all of the really amazing works of art that we have, artifacts like early flags, costumes, textiles of all kinds, pins, buttons, you name it. We have a lot in our art and artifact collection. So that should be going live. Keep an eye on that in the next month or two.
Did we answer the one about, we talked a little bit about donations and email.
Yes, just reaching out to me.
Yeah. Is anyone archiving the SF Sentinel? I know we've got the Sentinel. I think it's complete, but again, I would have to look it up.
Yeah, and I think there's been some talk. I can't say for certain. I honestly don't know if anyone has done it themselves. If those sorts of questions are always good. If we don't have something digitized, to look at SFPL, certainly for access. They also do digitization work. And CDNC, always a good place to go search for newspaper resources. Somebody asks, how young are your researchers? I would say our researchers, we've had class visits of high school students. Certainly at the museum, it ranges from elementary school onward. In the archives, typically folks are over 18, they're college students and above. But we get a really, really wide spectrum of researchers, and we're open to the public, and we really want to serve everyone. So we try to make research possible no matter where you are in your career or where you are in your sort of research journey.
And are you digitizing everything? I wish that we had it would just be it would be a project that would take the rest of our lives, unfortunately. So we have to sort of pick our battles.
Yeah, I think that digitizing, there's a balance between a sort of curated digitization approach and trying to get as much out there as possible. And I think actually you can see some of how that work has shaped out. Our photograph collections are a little bit more curated and tend to be sort of selected item level. And a lot of the AIDS related material, part of that grant was digitizing things at scale. So we would send off literally entire collections, the entire carton of stuff, and they scanned every page. And so you have access to basically every page from the collection. The only thing that's left out are things that had to be redacted for privacy or patient confidentiality. But beyond that, you're getting the entire collection digitized. So it's you can see both sort of in our digital collections and different scales of digitization.
Right.
Oh yeah, folks are from other states. All right, so are there anything else? We've got just a couple minutes left. We really appreciate you all sitting through, this long discussion of resources. I hope it was helpful, and please do reach out to us with any further questions. We really love talking to researchers. It's our whole purpose for being, so never feel like you can't reach out to us. We're always here.
Oh, thanks very much, Barbara. Oh, thanks, Lynn.
Everybody's sending thank yous. I'll send a thank you. This was really fun for me. As a staff member of the Historical Society who is not consistently in the archives, I'm always looking for information on how to access our resources. So this is useful for me too. Thank you. If we don't have any other questions, I think that we'll let everyone go tonight. Thank you again, Kelsey and Isaac, and also Ramon, who was sneakily in the background giving us some lovely little discussion points. And we hope that we will see you next week for our next Fighting Back panel on May 6th on pandemic sex, and stay tuned for more fun programming like this. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.